ARM. Invest in your tomorrow.
Well, Lagos, Nigeria world, good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed. It is gone past 30, which means it is more than time for us to bring you news analysis of the top stories affecting Nigeria and Nigerians wherever you are in the world. Okay, so joining Victor Peppel and myself, Shukla Martins, we have got a voice that's it's been too long since we heard. Tanukubi, how are you? Welcome.
Morning, Chocolate.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Lagos, and morning, Victor.
Welcome.
I,
Welcome to
I,
Good to have you back.
I actually cannot stop this now. I was trying to cut my face in half. Mr. C, good morning. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio with us.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Lagos.
And of course, there is you. Never forget how important you are to this conversation and make sure you join it. We are up on Twitter at Smooth981FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981 to get your messages into the right spot. Or, in fact, tag us at Smooth981FM. We're also streaming live right now on youtube.com/Smooth981FM Lagos. That's where you can find us. That's where you can join us. That's where you can leave your comments up on the live stream and send WhatsApp messages in to 0809 440 981. Shall we get started then?
Of course we shall. Let's get straight into it.
Let's do that. Guardian newspaper. Malnutrition scare as price of eggs rises beyond average households. Now, going into the story, and we had talked about this earlier on in the show, the fact that the frequent increase in prices has made eggs, which are supposedly the cheapest source of protein in Nigeria, now luxury items. The prices have continued to rise beyond even the reach of average households. And a survey that was conducted by the Guardian newspaper revealed that the price of a branded crate of eggs in most supermarkets is between 2,400 naira and 2,800 naira, which I think we can agree is a pretty high compared to what we remember. Lots of unbranded crate of 30 eggs is sold at between 2,200 and 2,500 depending on the sizes. And these are prices that we are seeing on the streets as well, on the streets of Lagos, as well as small size crate of eggs selling between 2,000 naira and 2,300 naira. Mr. C, what do you say to this? Yes, we talked a lot recently, even about if inflation and the effects of inflation, but to the point where people cannot afford to buy this what used to be such a basic staple. Give us your analysis on this.
Okay, thank you, Shopper. So I'm going to piggyback and start from the beginning. There are two sources of protein. They're either animal-based or plant-based.
Okay.
So from the animal-based proteins, we have beef, pork, chicken, fish. And then from the plant-based proteins, we have beans and soybeans. Soybeans. Cheapest, right? Very disturbing sequence of events.
Not to mention the added issues of the taxes, abnormal taxes, transportation difficulties, and then the middlemen.
No, yes, Shopper. And in addition to that, the incessant incidents with the farmers whereby they cannot farm, they cannot properly engage in agricultural activities. Now, it's instructive to know that about 85 million Nigerians are involved in this poultry business, the poultry value chain, and it's very instructive that this is happening now. Now, what are the effects of all of this? It leads to increased malnutrition in children. Now, the first 1,000 days of any child's life are very important because that is the period where you sort out malnutrition and the child grows properly. And we're talking about the first 1.5 years at the very least. Now, Nigeria ranked 21st on the global index for malnutrition, and it's expected to grow worse this year. Now, I'm going to read out some very disturbing facts. A 2021 UNICEF report states that 2.5 million Nigerian children are malnourished. 30% of them are underweight. 90,000 are near starvation. 6 million under 5 are stunted. They are growing at the normal rate. They haven't grown the way they should. And then 2.5 under the age of 5 are suffering from acute malnutrition. Now, you cannot divorce these facts from the general situation in the country today. So all of this coming together portends very grave trouble in Nigeria, especially with children.
Because
Now,
this was 2021. In 2020, 2022 has not being better than 2021.
Correct. Now, what are the ways this can be addressed? Because we're not just here to identify the problems and talk about them. So, with regards to the feed for the poultry, it's been advocated that cassava peels should be used rather than maize or grain, and that is something the farmers need to look at. People rearing poultry need to look at. Then the government has to find a way to reduce the cost of feed, reduce all these arbitrary and incessant taxes need to be harmonized. Yes, it's important to tax, and you must tax the business, but you mustn't tax the business to the point where you actually kill it.
The government has to find a way. It takes us to our next story. But right before we get into that, let's take a message from Chidozie on WhatsApp. It says, I think the chickens will be happy that we can no longer eat their produces while animal rights being enforced. Hashtag freshly pressed 981. Chidozie, we see you with that comment. Let's move from the Guardian to This Day newspaper now, where federal government moves to address rising food prices. It feels like good news today.
Yeah, it would if there was more detail. So I don't know if it's the newspaper or they just haven't provided, I don't want to call it soundbite. So because there's absolutely no detail talking about how exactly these bold moves, what are the bold moves? It's very short on detail. So it does say that, the vice president who presides over the, FEC has given approval for a committee to meet to take steps on addressing, rising food scarcity. But a number of things sort of come together for us to arrive at where we are. Obviously, the recent economic downturn. That if you look at it statistically, we're coming out of. Right, insecurity also is a huge factor. So these are things that have been building up for a while. Inflation is a huge factor.
Inflation.
Yeah. So food inflation over the last 3 years. Just before, especially by the turn of 2020. So this is let's say it's almost rolling into third year that food inflation is trending at 30%. Some items, way more than that. Obviously, if you're looking at, imported items, it's several times more than that. But you're even just looking at regular things, grains, things that, that you should, need from today. Some of those items have risen by as much as 30%. And it's that, rising inflation, it's we don't produce enough. Insecurity is a huge factor within that. So what are the details? The story instead then focuses a bit more on other sectors within the economy that they feel are doing well and they need to lend support to. Talks about additional parts of the police and all of that, and speaks about our growth. It says that we've grown 3.1% this quarter compared to 0.5% last year. But then again, that's a base effect. That's looking at this quarter's growth against last year's using a pandemic baseline. What's the growth compared to pandemic levels? It probably won't be as impressive. But inflation and food inflation is not right now. It's not in Nigeria or dealing with Nigeria alone. It's across the world, even in the West, in the UK, in the US.
Sorry,
everywhere.
I have to ask you this question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, we talk about Nigeria and we talk about the rest of the world. It is not endemic to Nigeria.
Yeah,
it is
at the
across the
moment.
world
Mhm.
at the moment. However, the levels of it
No.
is
It's outrageous. Yeah.
outrageous.
Outrageous.
Now, I'm sorry, but this is Nigeria. We have some of the finest and brightest of minds here. Yes, a number of them have gone brain drain to other countries where their talents can be used. But even still, from the people we have within this country, we have some of the best minds that I know of.
No doubt.
We have got economists. I know that much. We've got agricultural experts. Why are
Where
we
we-
finding it so hard? Why are we here?
Why are we here? And it's on the first. Why can't, with all our brilliant minds, but you kind of know my personal views on that. Nigerians are brilliant as individuals, but as a collective, it's a different matter, right? And that's down to the structures and enabling environments and all of that. We have a system that doesn't pick the best of us. No, but why are we here? It's not by accident. We're not here suddenly because of the of COVID or the pandemic. Like we said, inflation is an issue that is happening globally. But why are we so food insecure? It's something that's been building up for no less than a decade. It has to do with the insecurity that's going on. We describe the middle belt as the food basket for over a decade, way over a decade, there has been internal conflicts or low-level
That's what
war.
has had
and
many
that's-
holes
yeah,
poked in
poked
it.
through it. So we didn't just suddenly wake up and arrive here. Yeah. So suddenly, it's not something that the committee can just suddenly fix. Maybe that's why it's so light on detail, right? But let's see.
Well, the
maybe
president is out of
subsequently
the
what
country,
comes
so
out.
the vice president presided over the Federal Executive Council meeting yesterday and said we need to do something about rising food prices. Bottom line, the plan will be set out, funding gotten from the federal government. How well is yet to be determined in the coming months. But let's move on.
Maybe it's even, amounts for funding. It's really what's going on. Other countries are dealing with your rising food costs and putting interventions in place. In the interim.
Let's move on. Okay, because we can spend all day talking on this, but we've got this news in as we come to Lagos. From the Punch newspaper, ban Lagos to crush seized motorcycles on Friday. Now, the state government has said that, and we heard from the Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Gbenga Omotosho, in a statement on Wednesday saying that commercial motorcycles seized for flouting the ban in 6 local government areas of the state will be crushed before the media, in front of our very eyes, on Friday. Mr. C, considering the fact that this is the first phase of the ban, considering the fact that each of those motorcycles cost money, actual money, considering the fact that Lagos is only one state in many, and only parts of the state have this ban in effect, why are we seeing this happen? Or why are we going to see it happen on Friday before our eyes?
Okay, thank you, Shopper. So, to answer your last question, we're going to see this happen because the chairman of the Estates Residents Association for Lekki Peninsula Scheme 1 accused the state government of just seeing bikes through the Nigeria police force and returning the bikes to the offenders. But it's for them, it's a sign of good faith that we're actually seizing these bikes never to return them. But beyond all of this is another classic example of a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. Now, what triggered this ban was the unfortunate lynching of the gentleman in Lekki a few weeks ago, and our thoughts continue to go out to his families. Now, despite the shenanigans and the proclivities of the commercial motorcyclists, they actually serve a purpose. Whether we want to admit it or not, they're seeing the purpose is serving a demand. Now,
They're plugging a gap.
correct. Now, the transportation system of Lagos State hasn't adequately dealt with the last mile segment. And that's where you have those small shuttle buses, usually white in color. Now, because there are insufficient numbers of these buses, that's why you have a lot of commercial motorcyclists. Now, the commercial motorcyclist, you need to understand the psyche of the average commercial motorcyclist. He's only doing it to feed himself because he doesn't want to resort to a life of crime. Yes, in every 12 there will be a Judas, so there will always be bad elements in any group of people. But the majority of them, I dare say, are honest Nigerians who are trying to make a living. Now, you seize their bikes, you destroy the bikes, and some of them got those bikes on a lease hire purchase arrangement.
Right.
Some have probably not.
Thank you for putting that out there. Actually.
Some have probably not finished paying. The bike is gone. The debt is still there.
Mm-hmm.
You push the man's back to the wall. What then do you expect in result to crime? Can Lagos State government deal with the angry emotions and reactions of these commercial motorcyclists when this is done? We're heading for very interesting times, and I'm not sure crushing the bikes is the way to go. Like the Lagos State government said, they've been banned in 6 local governments. Last time I checked, I think there was 17 or 18 local governments in Lagos State. Why not just tell them to relocate to the other places? But before you do that, before the ban was announced, they should have ensured that they had sufficient numbers of the last mile buses. They don't, and they still don't. So there's a hole. What was being used to cover the hole, you take it out, and then you expect magic to happen.
Well, people, while we think about that, let's take a quick break. We will be right back. We see your messages, and we'll be taking them after this.
We don't take breaks within the show. We don't take breaks within the show. I don't know.
Yeah, this is sponsored.
Okay. Well,
You want to say something?
yeah, I wanted to comment. I wanted to make a quick comment on the bike story. But
Okay.
Yes, and then you look
I
away.
didn't. I was looking at you. Then you just said quick break. I indicated, and I was looking right at you. Then you said,
Then you looked away.
I didn't. After you said
Mr.
it
C, you
break.
saw me trying to. I was over there doing this. I did this. I did this. Because I was like,
Really?
Really?
Victor was here looking at you too, though.
see, this is why you people should look at the women in your
Oh,
lives. So
jeez.
that you can see.
Right. Wow. Shopper, you got me to contribute on stories without, like giving the secret hand gestures and the leg waves that I can't see. Right?
Okay. I'm sorry. Next time I will just bring you in.
And you're listening to Smooth 98.1. Keep listening.
Apple.
Welcome back. Remember, you can send your messages to WhatsApp 08094440981. Quite a number of messages in from Yinka Olu, who says, all these numbers and stars the sea shelling out, Shah. This is Nigeria. We don't have data for anything. So it makes me wonder where all these comes out from. I think he told UNICEF now. Please, if egg is too expensive, and we focus on fish or something else. That's also expensive.
It's expensive. It's more
Maybe
expensive than eggs.
vegetables. He goes on, he says that please, when they're done crushing the Okadas, let them shift their focus on tricycles and buses. Those guys are another menace loading quietly. The delivery bikes are the ones who are cultists in his words. Then those running red lights to their with their bosses. He goes on and on and on. Mr. C, I beg, relocate school to where so they can become a menace to us and be.
So we should just walk everywhere. Is his proposal, right? Because what's his plan for last mile delivery of people?
All right, we have this other message in from Chukwemeka Kanu, who says, X is beyond the reach of an average man. Reason being, maize is expensive. Nigeria cannot produce maize again. Too bad. A crate is about 2,100. Joseph?
Says the government is never concerned about whatever is happening, especially when it doesn't affect them. Imagine an average egg going for as much as 130 to 150 naira, yet all economic agencies and states regularly the state of the economy, which they're expected to respond to, but they won't unless someone is criticizing.
And this comes, Uche sends a message here. He says, we have a system that does not pick the best for us. This is the quote for today, and it really defines the Nigeria polity. I hope this doesn't repeat itself as we go on.
And going over to YouTube, where we are, Smooth 981 FM, Lagos, Apollo says, Shokwa, inflation is a global issue. Every country has brilliant minds too. The Nigerian problem is the lack of leadership.
All right, quickly, let's look at this story from the Punch newspaper. CBN retains 5% interest rates for power sector and others. On Cycle to Development Finance Initiative, the Central Bank of Nigeria has agreed to leave interest rates at 5% per annum for critical sectors and manufacturing industries until March 2023. Tunde, what do you make of this?
Yeah, because on the backdrop of the central bank increasing the base lending rates, I think, to 13%. Generally, this would have impacted lending generally. So I mean, if operators in the sector had try to get commercial loans, we know that they'll be looking at something that's closer to 20%. So they've the bank, because the bank does have it has a development finance sort of tilt and mandate, right? It has a development finance mandate, so it needs to invest in certain sectors of the economy or encourage investment in certain sectors of the economy. And one of those ways to encourage them is to have concessionary interest rates. So they say they're going to keep interest rates at 5% for critical sectors like power. We know we need power. And manufacturing. Just put this in stark contrast and show kind of where we are. Our total exports, I think the latest data that is available as of 2020 is $38 billion. Compare that to Vietnam, it's a much smaller country, it's $300 billion, right? We're just not producing. Yes, we're not producing. Initiatives and there's no excuse really. But before you can produce, you need power. So it's kind of the reasons why the central bank will, designate. That's why power has been designated as a special area to
But we
focus on.
used to
But problems
produce,
will be
we used to
focused on it
produce
forever.
before, sometime in the 80s, 90s, that all of those companies have folded up. Some of them
Yeah.
leaving Nigeria, even till date. There are some companies in the oil and gas who are folding up. Some are even going to Ghana. What can
And
we
why-
do to fix
And why
that?
do we say that? Hey, guys, it's not magic. We didn't just suddenly arrive here. It's decades of decay. One obvious reason beyond, policies, you can talk about ease of doing business and all of that as much as you want. But generally, if you look at the continent, there isn't much variance on the African continent, right? But at least one thing that is clear is our power generation and stability. How do you produce when you can't power, right? How will you be competitive if you burden manufacturers with the cost of diesel, right? To power the machinery. We're just not competitive in that regard. So that's what I'll use to explain the importance of why the central banks is they're keeping a concession rate for power. But we've had concession rates for the longest time. Just hope and pray.
Speaking about things that have been taking years, let's take a look at this one. Gumi advocates establishment of nomadic ministry. This coming in from the Guardian newspaper. Sheikh Gumi, a name that we have all come to know, whether you want to or not, has called for the establishment of a ministry of nomadic affairs to address the grievances of bandits and herders that are currently, as the article says, terrorizing the country. He made the call at the Pastoralists and Full-Base Security Conference on Wednesday in Abuja. Mr. C, I'm coming to you straight for this. Your thoughts on this call?
Okay, thank you, Shepard. So, first of all, it's very tempting to dismiss whatever he said yesterday because of his perceived antecedents, right? Now, yes, he's seen as controversial by some Nigerians, and it for some good cause, apparently. But however, I've gone through what he said yesterday, and there is some logic, there is some sense in what he did say. Now, in the years gone by, 20, 30 years ago, pastoralists and farmers used to coexist peacefully. There were no major issues. I'm not saying there were no issues, but there were no issues on the scale we see them today. All of a sudden, they find it difficult coexisting again. Clearly, some criminal elements have gone in, hidden under the guise of whatever conflicts may arise, and perpetrated criminality and violence. And I dare say killed some people. Now, he's advocating for a ministry for nomadic affairs, right? And along the same line that the Ministry for Niger Delta was created. Now, there's a big difference. Yes, we need to properly look at their grievances and to find a lasting solution to them. However, they're still perceived as being killers. And not every pastoralist is a killer. Not every pastoralist is a criminal. But there are bad elements amongst them. And for whatever reason, the state security agencies have been unable to fish all of them out. And criminals go under the guise of being pastoralists and commit all sorts of crimes. Now, we have some sort of formal setup dealing with the grievances? Yes.
Okay, Mr. C, sorry to come here. We live in a country where we complain about not producing and we don't have enough money and we're borrowing to pay salaries. Creating a new ministry, wouldn't it duplicate functions of other commissions that we have? To give you an example, we have, for instance, the Ministry of Agriculture. So having another ministry called nomadic, ministry, some Nigerians, some people would say, oh, this is not the time for that. He's talking about, the Niger Delta ministry. But I want to say this, we have the NDDC, right?
Yeah.
Similar to the NEDC in the Northeast, the Northeast Development Commission can also handle some of these issues that Sheikh Gumi have raised.
So correct, Victor, I share the same sentiments with you. So there's an existing Ministry of Agriculture. Surely there must be a department or unit within that ministry that is already tasked with solving problems like this. It's just to strengthen that unit, give them a fresh mandate, give them resources to work with, and come to some sort of understanding. But the bigger message, the bigger picture is the leaders of both the farmers and the pastoralists need to work together because there's a symbiotic relationship that can occur and will benefit both of them and the country in general if they're able to work in peace. So it's something the government should look forward to. It's something the government should work on and ensure that pastoralists and the farmers work together.
All right, quickly, Tunde, let's just touch on this story in about 1 minute if we can, so we can take some messages before we go. From Premier Times, FEC approves NNPC ECOWAS deal on Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline.
Is
Yeah.
this good news we can end the show on?
Yeah, well, definitely, it is good news. It's infrastructure. It's infrastructure investment. It's not just for Nigeria; it's regional. So obviously, we share the cost. It should make the movement of crude and gas a lot more effective. Thankfully, it's not something it's not a federal government project in alone of itself. So the chances of success are much higher. But it's infrastructure. It's infrastructure for the whole sub-region. So it's good.
All right, so getting back to your messages, I from CBS says, I don't know why some people are romanticizing Okada riders. I would like to ask the analyst if there's anywhere in the world where public transportation system takes you right to your doorstep. The advantage of
Yes,
Okada
India.
riders outweighs
China.
discomfort
Thailand.
of AEW
Thailand,
citizens
Vietnam.
who don't want
Thank
to
you.
walk to their doorstep. Is it insecurity, accidents, and health hazards?
Developing countries.
Okay. Lawlessness, or, do they pay taxes? Okada was banned in Benin City. They did not cry. There are other jobs begging for bodies, but Lagosians choose the easy route. It's okay, Dr. I. We
For
see
example,
your
farming.
message.
Okay.
Quite a number of it.
Victor Shell says, Mr. C, you forgot to mention milk is another source of protein. In spite of the excesses of the herdsmen, the milk, as well as from their herds, are a major protein source for growth, especially for Nigerian children. Lagos is not the first state to ban bias. Wike did in Port Harcourt, and heaven did not fall. Did Lagos suffer any economic loss as a result of the bike yesterday? I think that takes time to be counted. Whilst Ali says, spot on, Mr. C, the Lagos state government should have made available alternative modes of transport when they announced the ban. You need to see the number of people at the bus stop waiting to go home because of the unavailability of buses.
All right, so let's look at this one in from Gilbert Musa. It says, on food security, like one of the analysts pointed out, we have communal crisis in the north central Benue state, amongst other states, for over a decade. The Agatu killings in 2016 is a case that is unresolved till date. Until we address insecurity across Nigeria, food prices will most likely spike continuously.
And that's all we can take. Thank you so much for sending your messages in across the platforms. And a big thank you to our analysts of the day. You can find them up on social media. You can find Mr. C across Instagram, Twitter, wherever. He is at Monsieur C, and the C is spelled with C and triple E. And Tunde Okufi, still at Big Coofs?
Most definitely.
Still at Big Coofs. There you go. Go check him out. And that is that for Freshly Pressed coming up 8:15. It will be the Grapevine, where we bring you all the entertainment, and you need to get that update on what happened with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Is it Monsieur C now or Mr. C? Is it Monsieur or you just
Monsieur.
It's Monsieur. You changed to Monsieur.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
It's not
Mr.
Monsieur.